Welcome to Etrata, the Silencer. Hope you're excited to hang out in the alleyways with Etrata as we swoop down and pick up people for the Demir Guild. Should be a fun time, but let's start off with Etrata herself. So we have Etrata. She cannot be blocked, and then whenever she deals combat damage to a player, exile target creature that player controls, put a hit counter on that card. That player loses the game if they own 3 or more cards exiled with hit counters on them. Then shuffle Etrata into your library. Now, this is a really fun deck to play. I love playing this deck. I cannot wait to get her incorporated into my daily recording videos. But one of the cool things about Etrata is that she gives black-blue something to do other than mill. And it's really fun to kind of get those hit counters going. The fact that she's unblockable makes this a really easy thing for you to do if you're going to set up some sort of black-blue control deck. I ended up actually building a kind of a black-blue Super Friends deck, getting a lot of Planeswalkers on the battlefield, and I'll kind of explain a little bit more about that as the deck tech goes on. But for the most part, if you're looking for a new black-blue commander to play that is fun, interactive, and just it's always nice to get those alternative winning conditions. This is the commander for you. Now, one of the things that you can really do to utilize Etrata is that when she deals that combat damage, you're going to get that hit counter, but she's going to get shuffled back into your library. So one of the things that you want to be able to do is make sure that you always have access to her. And one of the best ways to do that is going to be through the ninjutsu ability. The ninjutsu ability is that you can swing it with Etrata. She can deal that combat damage. With that trigger on the stack, you go activate ninjutsu, put that creature on the battlefield. She goes back to your hand. That trigger resolves, they still get a hit counter on it. And you also get this creature on the battlefield. So it's a wonderful way for you to basically kind of negate that commander tax. Now, you are playing commander. Let's say that you don't have ninjutsu, you don't have some sort of way to tutor her. You can send her back to the command zone, but that will be 6 mana unless you have, and then if you don't have anything like Lightning Greaves or Swiftfoot Boots, it's going to be another turn before you can swing an attack with her. So you definitely want to incorporate some sort of way to bring her back to the hand after you deal that combat damage. And ninjutsu is a wonderful way. Sakashima Student, that's going to be a good way for us to kind of make a copy of whatever sort of creature on the battlefield. Ninja Deep Hours is going to give us some really good card advantage, and then Throat Slitter is going to allow us to kind of go for some combat damage. Now, the only downside to Throat Slitter and Ninja of Deep Hours is you're not going to get that combat trigger. We need Etrata to hit combat first, but once they're on the battlefield, you do have access to that, and it kind of puts your opponent in this weird position to where if they do end up dealing damage, you get some sort of extra value from those particular creatures. And also, with the Steel Wind that's going to enter the battlefield, we can search your library for another Ninja card that's going to keep that ninjutsu online. And then Mistblade, that's basically just going to be a really cheap ninjutsu activation for 1 blue mana. Now, another way that really kind of helps you kind of push this kind of tempo deck with an Etrata is going to be bounce spells. Stuff like Vapor Snag, Seal of Removal, Stantiate. You can return spell or creature to its hand. Once again, once you deal that combat damage with Etrata, you activate Seal of Removal, you go for Vapor Snag, bounce it back to your hand, and then you can recast her in your second main phase, and then be online for next turn. The other thing is that these spells work out really well with what we're trying to do with Etrata, and we're trying to basically frustrate our opponent. We want to kind of build this tempo deck. We want to be able to, they tap out turn 5 to get this creature down. We Vapor Snag something back to the hand, or we send something back. Basically, you kind of want to be in your face with this deck, and that's exactly how I designed this deck to be. It's just kind of really in your opponent's face. Select for Inspection is another great one. It's 1 blue mana. We can turn Etrata back to the hand whenever she's tapped. Also get the Scribe, which is really nice. Then, of course, Unsummon. Wonderful card, 1 blue mana. Return target creature to its owner's hand. Now, the other way that you can make sure that you always have Etrata on her perch in the alleyway is going to be through actual tutor cards themselves. So stuff like Demonic Tutor, Vampiric Tutor, Diabolic Tutor, any sort of these cards will make sure that you always have access to her. It's just cheaper to go for the bounce route, bring her back to the hand. But you are running black-blue, and of course running a tutor is going to definitely help you. Now, there is Flesh Writher, which is really interesting card from Future Sight. Transfigure for 3, sacrifice this creature once it's on the battlefield. Search your library for a card with the same converted mana cost, and that's going to be 4 total mana. So that's something that you can use. Get that down, sacrifice it, and search up Etrata. And plus, the art is just wild. Look at that card. Pretty wild. Also, keeping on theme with that Transfigure, there's Transmute. There's a Clutch of the Undercities, basically kind of like your sweet spot for the deck. Return target permanent to its owner's hand. You can Transmute for 3. A little expensive, but if you're looking for something to bounce it back, you can. And of course, something like Limdul's Vault. This is going to be an excellent way for us to kind of look at the top 5 cards of our library, get a really good pile going, and at the same time, we can dig a little bit deeper to find Etrata. Now, it will be a little bit expensive if Etrata's hanging out down towards the bottom, but you don't know battle. And so eventually, that's the cool thing with Vault, is that you start to pay some life, and eventually you kind of get into this pile of maybe it's a Vampiric Tutor and some mana rocks or something else, and you're like, I'll just keep that on top, and then I'll use that to find Etrata. So you don't have to dig too deep to find Etrata off of that one life off of Limduel's Vault. Now, we are playing a control deck, and that's going to start with mana, Soul Ring, Delay, Counterspell. You want some sort of counter magic to kind of stop what your opponent's doing. And of course, you can have removal and board wipes. Hero's Downfall is a wonderful piece of removal for the deck. And then Toxic Deluge is going to make sure. With the Etrata sitting at 3/5, there will be some board states where you can kind of toxic away some of the smaller creatures from your opponent and just really kind of start picking them off your opponent's creatures. Now, the meat of this deck. Now, one of the cool things about Etrata is that if you're playing against somebody, they don't really get any creatures out, you don't have a win condition. You can swing in for combat damage, but that's going to take like 7 turns to get 21 combat damage. So one of the ways to kind of get the creatures to come out onto the battlefield is by running some sort of like Planeswalker. I decided to go pretty heavy on Planeswalkers. This does two things for the deck. It gives us some really nice value, and it gives us a secondary win condition. It kind of puts pressure on our opponent to, hey, I'm going to get down Ashiok. I'm going to keep plussing up on your library. Unless you get creatures down to deal with it, I'm simply just going to sit here and win the game with this ultimate. Once that happens, they get some creatures on the battlefield. They start swinging in at you. You can get down Etrata and start picking off some of those creatures. So basically, it's kind of like Etrata's like befriended all these Planeswalkers to kind of do her bidding as she swoops down and picks creatures up. But there's a ton of Planeswalkers in black-blue. I'm not going to cover all of them. Basically, if I'm running a Planeswalker in here, it's because it gives us some sort of ultimate to work towards, or it gets just some really nice value once it hits the battlefield, and your opponent definitely wants to take care of it. And we're running a ton of artifacts. So of course, Tezzeret, which I love Tezzeret. Tezzeret Artifice Master 2 is going to allow us to get some really good card advantage. And then Tamiyo is going to allow us to kind of, once again, keeping down with that tempo play, we can tap down some of our opponent's creatures. And of course, the Chain Veil, activate each Planeswalker you control. That'll really get the creatures on the battlefield, and that will make Etrata a very happy camper. Now, that's going to bring us to the end of the deck tech. I do have 3 gameplay videos up for you right now, so if you want to head out, check them out, have some fun, and yeah, cannot wait to keep recording with Etrata. And if you've built Etrata and you have any suggestions, please put them down in the comments below. I always like to make sure my build has really cool cards in there, and so if I miss something, let me know. So, hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, like and subscribe. Thanks. Bye.